All right, we got a good one for you today, guys. We're going to be doing some painting. Going to give you some tips on building you a little makeshift paint booth, getting your airflow right, getting your parts prepped out right, and getting some paint laid down, and hopefully everything goes pretty smooth. Let's get to it. All right, today, guys, we're painting the hood of this car. This is Lindsay's first car. There she is hiding out over there. This is her first car. We got her a Mini Cooper. It's a pretty nice car, but it looks like this hood has probably been repainted before, and it's got like some faded area. Also, let me see if we can get in here. There's some area here where it looks like the clear coat's coming off and it's still glossy underneath, so that's what leads me to believe that it's been repainted once before. And whether they just didn't use good clear coat or something, it looks like it just doesn't have the same gloss as the rest of the car. It's got some tiny little chips here and there. We're going to use some glazing putty, fix those. We got a little area here. Let's see if I can get it to show up. Looks like there was some kind of situation here, like a bunch of tiny little scratches. Not sure what happened there. So we're going to put a fresh coat of paint and clear coat, and then we decided we're going to do the little racing stripes coming up the hood on each side in white. Just since we're painting it, might as well do a little something extra. First thing we're going to do is take this hood off here and there. We're going to sand it down, glazing putty, we're going to get ready to put some fresh paint on it. Next thing that we're going to do is when we're sanding, we don't want to scuff up any of this chrome, and I don't want to take it all off because a lot of it's got little plastic clips, and I don't want to risk them breaking and then have to deal with that putting it back together. So we're going to take and use masking tape and put masking tape, probably 2 layers on all this chrome right here, so that we don't have to, the emblem and everything, that way we don't have to worry about hitting it while we're sanding. If you see this area where somebody had a problem here, I would bet that they didn't sand good right there and the paint didn't stick good because they were probably worried about scuffing up this chrome. And if they'd have had some masking tape on that, they could have got right in there real good, sanded it, and not worried about the adhesion to the old paint. So let's get it masked off and we'll start sanding. I like to put 2 layers on some spots because I don't have to worry about it burning through, because what's going to happen is part ways through sanding you'll burn through the tape, and then you're going to stop what you're doing, go get your tape and put some more tape down in a spot where it burned through. If you go ahead and put 2 layers on from the get-go, it just, to me, it's faster to go that way.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Is this gonna be a voiceover?
Some of it, maybe not this part.
Hey everybody, welcome to our shop.
Today we'll wipe it down with acetone. There's probably waxes and no telling what all on here, and it'll clog up the sandpaper if you don't have it good and clean first. So we're gonna wipe it down with acetone before we get started on sanding.
Daddy,
What happened? Oh, you need some bubbles? Well, we probably got some bubbles for you, buddy.
Kid.
What the?
We're just going to sand this down with some 400 grit, and anywhere that I've got to use the spot putty, we'll probably do a little bit more. We'll probably spot putty and scuff the spot putty down with like some 200 or 220, and then come back with the 400 over that. But I first just want to go over the thing with 400 once real good, just to see what we're working with and decide what spots we need to put the spot putty over and any body work if we need to do that. Alright, I got some 400 grit on a pad right here. I just want to go over the whole thing, probably once this way, and then I'll come back and hit it this way. Kind of like the same thing you do when you're sanding down anything before paint. You kind of go both ways, give it a crisscross kind of hatch pattern over everything. And any of these edges you want to be real careful, because you will sand through the paint down to the metal, and anywhere that you get down to the metal you're going to have to use primer on. We will be primer in some spots anyway, but I'm just going to try to be careful not to get anything down to metal as much as I can. We're basically just scuffing it down so the paint will stick good and fixing any little problems that are on it. So I got some 220 on here, and I'm going to go over all these little spots you can see here where the clear coat's flaking, and hope to get it to feather back where it's not got that chipped look. It'll start kind of making a blend look. They call it feathering it back. We're going to try and get all that to feather back. We got an area here, this is what I was talking about earlier, where it looked like some scratches on it. It's starting to show up now that you get that 400 grit. All that little stuff starts to show up on it. I'm gonna go over it with the 220 in a few spots, and then we'll come back with the glazing putty if we need to in a few spots, and back with the 400 again over that. This is what I'm talking about, it feathering out. So there's no lip, there's no edge. Got a little bit right there if you look real close, a little bit of an edge right there, so we need to sand right there just a little bit more, but it's starting to feather that out real nice. That's what we're looking for right there, so there's not that edge, and then you won't have that peeling issue the next time. Still got a few more spots right in here. That whole edge, they didn't do a good job sanding it last time, and that's what caused that paint not to stick good to it. I'm going to wipe it down. Make sure there's no shiny spots. You'll be able to see if there's any spots we missed, because they won't have a good hazy look to them. We're just trying to get it all scuffed up and hazy. If anything comes back looking glossy, we'll have to sand it again. And then we also got all these spots. If you come around here, we got all these little chips. We're going to fill all those with the spot glazing putty, along with this area here that had the scratches on it. You can see we still got some scratches and some little low spots, so we're going to take that glazing putty and hit all the little chips and low spots we can find. Show y'all a trick here, what I do. Keep you from wearing these things out. Well, I usually buy the big ones. Sometimes you don't need a big one. I cut pieces off of it and then coat it with some painter's tape or any kind of tape really, and that way when you're done using it you can peel that tape off and still get a nice clean surface. Be ready to use it again and again and again.
For that.
Here's the glazing putty we're using. Bondo 3M makes one similar. I can't really tell a difference from one to the other. There's one that's green that I like better than this red kind, but they didn't have it at the store, so I got this red one. We're just going to hit any little spots. You going inside? Okay. This area is real bad. of the glazing putty. You can see where we still got a couple low spots. And then we'll go 400 back over all the spots that we just sanded, and I think it'll be ready for some primer and paint. I think we got all the body work done on it. This area ended up needing a little more than I thought it was going to need, but it's good and smooth now. All these little chips are feeling good. Did notice the last guy that painted here got some overspray, little sanding marks and some overspray on this thing. We went back over all these. We hit them with a 220 and then went back over with a 400. So everything's been sanded down to a 400 now. So I think we're good to give it a good wipe down and hit it with some primer. So we're not in any kind of professional paint booth or anything. This is something, if you got a tent you can paint in. I've seen people painting all kinds of stuff. We're painting in this shop, and we're doing a little plasticking off in here to kind of make a little makeshift paint booth inside the shop here. Now I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing for a paint booth here. I've seen a lot of people do a lot of things. You know, it's great if you got a fancy multi-$1,000 whatever paint booth, and most of us just playing around don't. You can borrow them, whatever. I've done this kind of setup before, and I'm going to explain to you some of the do's and don'ts about painting in a shop or in a tent outside or whatever. All this plastic I got up is serving two purposes. One, the main thing is you don't want to get overspray all over the place in here, because that stuff's nasty. It builds up. If you're just doing one little thing, it's one thing, but over time it's going to be built up and everywhere, and everything's, especially painting red or something like that, everything's going to be red in here in the walls and all that. So I said step one, keep the overspray down. Step two is going to be keeping this booth pressurized. Now you're going to say everybody's got the fans sucking the fumes out and the paint out, and we're doing the opposite here. We got this fan right here on the back side of the door. You can see that, and it's not all taped off. If all this works out, I'm actually painting tomorrow, so if all this works out, I'll seal that up better. But what I'm going to show you is when we get in here, if you got this fan on, you see how all the walls were pushing out. This fan is pushing in, and I got it filtering. I may move that filter outside if it's a nice day tomorrow. That's going to be the big clincher. If it's a nice day, we'll do a setup something like this. Fresh air pushing in, filtered fresh air pushing in. And what that does, this plastic's not 100% sealed. I seal best as I can, but this air coming in has to get out somewhere. So what that does is all these cracks and crevices, dust cannot come in, because the air right now is forced out, all my little cracks and crevices. So if there's pollen in the air, if there's dust in the air, even little bugs and stuff, that all the air is being pushed out. All these cracks everywhere, anything that's not 100% sealed is air being pushed out as opposed to sucking in. If I had that fan facing the other way, pulling draft out, it's going to be sucking pollen, it's going to be sucking dust, trash, everything is going to get sucked in, all these little crevices everywhere. And that's what's going to ruin your paint. You know, everybody says prep work is 90% or 99% or whatever. You can prep, you can get the smoothest finish prep you want on something, but if you got a bunch of trash falling on your clear coat, it's going to mess it all up, it's going to ruin it, and you're not going to be happy. So key, push the air into your booth, filtered air pushed into the booth, and then whatever can't stay trapped in here is going to be pushing out those cracks and keeping any debris from coming in. So it's pressurized, basically it's pressurizing your booth. Now, I'm not painting today. I'm going to be painting tomorrow, hopefully, and there's a small chance of rain. So if the humidity's way up, and that's why I hadn't taped off all this outside as far as my cardboard and whatnot goes. Because if the humidity's way up, 100% and whatnot, I may have to change that up. I may end up firing up the wood stove and cutting a filter in here getting this pushed in a little bit and cutting a filter in the side of this and bringing warm dry air from my wood stove into the booth as opposed to that outside fresh air. And we'll just kind of have to see how the weather is tomorrow. But as you can see, that thing's pressurized right now, and I've got that little slit where I can get in and out. And once I get in there and start painting, I'll try to get my overlap real good on this. But you can see, I mean, that's air pushing out. It's not gonna suck any trash in, any debris in, any bugs, anything like that. We are obviously not in a sealed enclosure. As you can see, let me kill these lights right here. And I'm gonna show you, see all that? Most people's shops, if it's something like what I'm working with, you're gonna be able to see daylight in the corners, here and there. And if you got this thing in a vacuum, sucking air, pulling air out, it's gonna be sucking through all those little holes. And that's where all your trash, all your debris and everything's gonna come from. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. Hopefully it's not a washout. Hopefully it's not raining. I can go with this setup, because if I got to start a fire in this, and I have to push this plastic, get it a little further away, and redo some of that to get a filter in the side of that and not let it get melted up on the wood stove there. Tomorrow when we get everything prepped and in here, we'll check them out, see how it goes. Okay, we got her moved into our little makeshift booth. I don't have my air going on in here yet. Probably gonna do primer with just it sitting in here. Primer's not that bad. What I did do is go ahead and pull all this old dusty tape off here. I'm gonna get it cleaned up real good, and then we're gonna do a little bit of primer. You definitely want to primer anything that's either down to metal or got filler on it like that, all these little spots. And I'm probably just gonna try to prime as little as I can, because I don't want this whole hood primered. I'm worried about the color bleeding through, and the different base that you have underneath this red is going to affect the color that it comes out at the end. And I did get the what they call oxidized red primer to try to help match this red, and hopefully we can get it to where it doesn't look too blotchy and covers pretty good. So I got this thing cleaned up pretty good. I went through with some acetone and a rag, and I got my knife on the edge of that rag and really tried to clean in all these grooves real good. Make sure it's good and clean, because there's going to be paint going in there. Now we're just taping it off. This time I'm only going with one layer of tape instead of two. I had 2 layers on there last time. Obviously that was when we were sanding, and I was trying to protect that chrome from getting scratched up. We're doing 1 layer of tape this time. I don't want to overtake in these creases. I want as much paint as I can get to get down into those creases and stuff. So we're just using 1 layer of tape on this, and we're really trying to get that tape tucked up in that edge there. If you have any of those stickers under here, spec stickers, sometimes they'll have a little sticker down here to tell you what size your engine is, or serial numbers and different things. I've got one back there. I never ever want to paint over those. It looks terrible, and plus there might be information that you or somebody else needs one day. I'll show you what I'm talking about on this sticker. See if we can get it in there. See it right there? So I'm going to tape that off, and I'll cut around it so that when it comes off, there won't be any tape lines around it. I'll tape over it and then cut right around it, because overspray is going to get everywhere. If this were a paying customer, you'd probably want to mask this hole off here so that overspray is not getting in there. But this isn't that type of job today. Not to mention, like I said, there's already overspray underneath the whole entire hood from the last dude, so it is what it is. All right, I think I got it masked off. As good as we're doing it. Looks good. I did put this little back tape all around the edge here, because I want to be shooting paint right here on that edge pretty good, and I don't just want to be shooting it into the back of the thing at the same time. So that's going to kind of help me if I'm shooting at that angle right there, not to just be throwing all kinds of paint underneath it. It's gonna get some overspray down there. Like I said, it's already got it, so it is what it is. Taped these off from the back side, up underneath. Taped off that sticker there. So that's what we're looking like. I think I'm gonna get me a tack cloth, wipe it down, and shoot a little primer to it. I'll have to go ahead and get a fire going. Let me show you what I did out here. I don't have a lot of wood, so I was trying to wait on the fire situation. Hello. So I got this piece of plywood here. I'm not gonna try to get it too hot, just a little bit of heat. So I got that plywood there, hopefully protect my plastic from melting. And then I'm gonna set up a fan just right up in this area, cut in a filter and set up a fan there to try to pull some of this heat into the booth while I'm painting. Second filter cut in the wall, that's our other one down there. Got a second one cut in the side here. Got us a small fire going in the wood stove. And that little fan blowing some heat in there. Alright, so I got the primer laid down. We just kind of blended it into a few spots where we had body filler and sanded down deeper than the top coat of paint. I use that red primer, so hopefully when we come back with the red, it'll blend in good and it won't be too blotchy. So now I'm going to lay the stripes out how we want them, even though we're not going to paint them yet, but it's going to give me reference points, so when I got fresh red paint on here, I'm not laying down with my tape measure and trying to lay them out at that point. So we'll already have them laid out and markings on here where we need the stripes to lay out at. So first thing I'm gonna do is try to find center of the hood with this emblem right here. It won't get covered up with paint. There we go. I'm going to let that primer dry just a little bit longer and then we'll wipe it down and spray the base coat red. Alright, here's our paint gun set up. This is an old gun I've had for a long time. It still seems to spray pretty good. I've got these disposable filters, and I may end up swapping it out partway through clear or before clear or something like that. And I'm just using this little compressor, so don't be afraid to paint with a smaller compressor. And what I always do when I'm painting, it may be a bad idea, it's just something I've always been doing and I like it, is I take and loosen this petcock. So you can see where I'm at. I loosen this just a little bit so it's kind of constantly hissing. You hear it gurgling just a little bit. I'll leave it like that. If moisture is getting in there, at least it'll get out the way I look at it, but somebody else may have a different opinion on that. It's that chili red right there. We'll see how it sprays. it's not spraying real good. Sometimes I like to add a little more reducer than what they say. Otherwise, you're going to be cranking your pressure up real high. The more reducer you got, the more transparent your color is going to be, but the better it's going to want to lay. So you got to find that sweet spot for yourself and for your gun and how everything lays out. So I'm going to give it a little test spray. I usually like to try to spray around 30 psi. Sometimes you go down, sometimes you go up, but I'm gonna either have to pick it up just a smidge. If you can tell it's not atomizing real good, the speckles are a little bigger than what I like basically. So I can either add a little more reducer or I can give myself a little bit more air pressure. It's gonna do about the same thing. That's looking pretty good right there. I'm gonna go with it. I always start with a light coat. I don't put a real fat coat down first. Kind of helps everything kind of get acclimated. If you do a real fat coat first, sometimes that's where, how about that focus? Nice. If you do a real fat coat first, sometimes is where you get fish eyes and different kind of problems like that. It seems to me if you do a light coat, just a real light haze coat first and then get them thicker and thicker each coat, that it just tends to lay a whole lot better. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my camera out of here because I don't want a bunch of overspray all over it, and we'll come back after I get a coat on this thing. Okay, so that's our first light coat of the red on there. It's been flashing. Flash coat is when you wait, depending on how long it takes to dry, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes. This has been here about 15 minutes or so. It's not wet. You don't want to flash too close from one coat to the next or your paint will get real heavy, and that's when you get sags, which is similar to a run except for it happens over time. After that paint sits here, if it's too heavy and thick, it'll start to just fall on the floor. So I always come in and touch something like this and make sure it's maybe just past tacky before I'll come and put another coat on it. And we're probably going to end up with about 3 coats of red on this, I'm guessing. Before we get nice full coverage on it, we'll kind of see how it goes, but it's ready for another coat. So I'm going to do this coat a little bit thicker, and I'm going to get my camera out of here so it doesn't turn red. Just laid down the 3rd coat of red. I'll tell you what, this little setup I got going here, it's hot in this shop, but that's just making that paint dry about perfect. I mean, it's nice warm dry air. It has drizzled a couple times out here, and I turned my outside fan down on low and got this one on number 2. And I mean, it's nice. It's doing good. I'm digging it. I am digging it. You want it to dry just fast enough, but not too fast. If it gets to drying too fast, what happens is if it gets to drying too fast, you'll get to where you're spraying and you move to start spraying on the other side, and that bit of overspray is drying before it kind of melts into the next line that you're painting. Especially if you have to move around a little bit, you'll have problems with one line not wanting to melt into the next and having this overspray look. And it's not so bad with your base, but when you're clear, it won't get good and wet and it's leaving streaks in it. A lot of times it's because you're drying too fast. You want it just fast enough, you know, like I said, that way it dries up over time. Over about 15 minutes before it's dry enough to coat again is about where you want to be on it. Anything more than that, especially with good wet coats of clear, you may get them sags in it, and that's what you don't want. All right, I've been patiently waiting. It's been about almost 5 hours since we laid the base down. I've been messing with it. It feels pretty good. I hope it doesn't lift the paint. This is going to be one of them, you know, is the thumbnail going to say painting tips or painting fail? Which one's it going to say? We'll find out. Next thing we're going to do now is lay down the stripes on here. We got these marks. I can still kind of see where the ink pen mark was, but I was worried I wouldn't be able to, so that's why I put these little crowfoot notches in the tape on the corners. So they're going to start there, and they're going to be 5 inches wide back this way, and one here 5 inches wide back that way, and vice versa. They're little angled kind of stripes that they put on these cars from the factory. So we're going to get our stripes laid out on this thing, and I've got this purple tape. Let me show you what I got here. This purple tape 3M makes right here, and it's designed for, it's called delicate surface tape, but it's designed for fresh paint and other stuff that you don't want to peel off. Whenever you peel the tape off, it doesn't lock in as hard, and hopefully won't peel that off. Also, we're going to use a hair dryer when we go to remove it, which kind of loosens up the glue on the back of the tape when you heat it up. So hopefully everything will go good. I'm going to get them laid down, and we'll see how it goes. With the white Duplicolor, this is just rattle can Duplicolor. What's it called? Polar Arctic white. It was the whitest white I could find there. I have used Duplicolor with Nason clear coat over it before, and it's worked out really good in the past. I hope we have the same results this time. Probably gonna at least have to do 2 coats of this to get that red to cover. We'll see how it goes. Let's get a coat down. See what we think about it. It's looking good. It's ready for some clear coat. I'm gonna mix up some clear. Gotta stoke up that wood stove. It's gonna get cold in here again, and then we're gonna have clear coat issues, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna stoke up this wood stove, and we'll get some clear hammered down on this thing. All right, guys. I'm about to get really hot. I got all this stuff on. This clear coat is a mess, and I always wear all this crap now because I used to not, and you're gonna come out feeling like you just got dipped in glue. So I'm gonna try to get a little bit of footage of painting, and hopefully it doesn't ruin the camera. All right, that was one light coat of clear. Again, same process. I'm starting with light coats, getting heavier and heavier, and that last coat's got to be wet, wet. And if it still looks kind of rough and not just wet, wet, either lay more or let it set and do another coat. So we're going to let that flash for a few minutes, and then we'll come in and lay it heavier and heavier. I'm not going to bring the camera in there anymore, because once I get laying it heavier and heavier, it's going to be a cloud in there, and you won't even be able to see anything, and I'll have to clean the camera and who knows what, maybe even get another one. So that was the light coat. We're going to follow it up with heavy coats, and I'll step back in every once in a while and let you see the progress. All right, I just finished the second coat of clear. I'm going to see if we can sneak in here. It's still pretty cloudy, but I'm going to get my mask on and we'll sneak in here, see if I can get you some shots of it. Hopefully I'm done painting. We're going to let it set up now. That's 3 coats of clear on there. Like I said, that first coat was a light coat. Second coat was a good, pretty wet coat. And that third coat, I freaking laid her down. I put it on heavy. I hope it doesn't sag. It's been sitting here, I'd say 15, 20 minutes. It's still, from what I see, there's no sags in it. It looks good. Let's get you guys in here on it.